session order. This is on our ADA commission. Let's go around the table and give everybody's name for identification for the tape.
Lynn Kenny.
David Zemer.
Tim Steve.
Bill Evans.
Amy Demboski.
Dick Training. And on the telephone,
Lynn, are you there? Can you introduce yourself for the record?
Lynn Carew.
thank you. Well, thanks for coming here. We'll turn the time over to you.
Okay, and I provided a hard copy of what we're going to be talking about. What we were asked to do was to create a list of recommendations from our committee on issues that we feel are important and that should be addressed within the municipality. Basically setting a series of goals and standards that when we look back on what the commission has done and what the assembly has done a year later, we can have a concrete set of metrics to see, have we done some things? And so we're not all just talking about the importance of accessibility, but that we have a series of concrete steps that could be made. And so what we did,
Excuse me for just a moment. Let
Sure.
the minutes reflect that Pete Peterson joined us. He was out there with the pink fire truck.
Yes, I was.
Good. Go ahead, sir.
no problem. So what the commission did is, based on our expertise and the input of the various groups that have interacted with our commission over the last year or so, we try to compile 10 issues that are what we view important to address in regards to accessibility within the municipality. And what we would offer is, once we present these to the assembly, we didn't come presenting solutions. We came presenting, these are things that need to be addressed. We look at our role would then be, with the help of the assembly, to prioritize some of these and then help provide concrete solutions that could be acted on to achieve some of these goals. So I don't know if the format would be for me to present the 10 items to the group. That's kind of up to the members of the assembly of how we can best use the time that we're here with you.
Mr. Chair, I would appreciate it if you would just briefly go through each of the items,
Okay.
recognizing we'll probably only have about 10 minutes for presentation, another 10 for questions maybe.
Okay. So the first item is the municipality ADA compliance. Some of the key points we see here are making sure that there is an ADA coordinator assigned within the municipality, and that the information of who that is well published and distributed so that people will know who to contact within the municipality if they have accessibility issues. Kind of on that same light is, we would hope that the MOA is a model employer, that they seek to employ people with disabilities. We also think that it should be a focus to make sure people with disabilities are serving on commissions, like in our commission. One of the second points is the Performing Arts Center Town Square, safety and accessibility. I think it's been discussed multiple times, but there needs to be a safe solution to provide an accessible way for people to access the Performing Arts Center, where they're not encouraged to cross lanes of traffic. The third point is the service animal laws and ordinances, making sure that they're update and modern compared to what's going on across the country, and making sure perhaps this is a chance where the municipality can be even better than what the ADA would simply require. Next point is accessible parking spaces and enforcement. We've heard a lot of input from different groups, how important parking and access is, especially in the winter months. We feel making sure that through the regulation of construction and renovations to parking, that the reviewers understand and are ensuring that any new design work includes all those elements. There's been also a lot of talk of making sure that there's an effective way to enforce parking, especially accessible parking, when people are illegally using it. Our next point is helping to ensure that there's effective communication for citizens with sensory impairments. Some of the points there were making sure that the municipality's emergency and disaster communication methods, that when those emergencies or disasters occur, that people with sensory impairments are able to be made aware of that as well. We think it's also important that there's some policies and procedures that when meetings are announced or activities through the municipality, that those are clearly communicated to people with sensory impairments. Another point under that is, helping to ensure that we educate and train healthcare, public safety, emergency response personnel on their responsibilities to provide effective communications for those people. And a big one is ensuring that the municipality website is in compliance and accessible to people with sensory impairments. Next point was inclusive disaster preparation. Making sure that when there are disaster preparation activities held, that there are people with disabilities included in those exercise drills. Then looking at accessible pedestrian access. We talked about that a little bit just in parking, but we also think it's important to look at that at a bigger scale. Making sure and continuing to improve timely snow removal to provide access to people with disabilities. Perhaps a communication method where those priorities can be communicated if for example, if there's a person with a disability that lives off a route that's not readily maintained, maybe a hotline or something that could be called in, and so the municipality could act on those issues more quickly. And then I think, again, we talk about looking into some kind of enforcement or code to make sure that businesses are being responsible in providing accessible access from parking or the right-of-way to the front door of their businesses. Another area we think is important is affordable and accessible housing. Encouraging that universal design is included in new construction, and that remodels not only meet the ADA requirements, but are encouraged to exceed those base minimum standards. And perhaps requiring that new single-family housing that is built have at least one method of entering that could be either made accessible to begin with or easily modified to be accessible. Our next point was accessible, safe transportation. We'd like to note that we think and we talk about Anchor Rides, that they're doing a really good job, and we would just encourage to continue doing a good job and maybe expanding that to provide even better employment opportunities for people with disabilities. We think there could be some work done with the transportation inspectors to begin to draft recommendations for universal design taxis. And we just think, additional education and training and awareness for people with disabilities to all transportation systems. And then lastly is the idea of a public education campaign where we could help to educate the public about accessibility through the use of our Facebook page. We've already started on a one-year-long program to help to educate, and we think looking at planning and funding a community celebration to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the ADA, which is coming up next summer. I hope I didn't talk too fast.
You did fine. Amy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to preface my comments with I'm looking for complete candor.
Absolutely.
So first, from the commission's point of view, is there anywhere that the municipality of Anchorage is falling short on compliance where we need to focus on? I heard you talk about accessibility. I heard you talk about our webpage. is there anywhere that the commission has identified that we maybe are not meeting the minimum standards right now?
And I want to be sure that, Lynn, are you still on the phone with us?
Yes, I am.
Are there any issues that you would like to bring forward that we could point out specifically?
Well, websites are always a problem. I've done some website analysis for people a couple times, both here and in Canada, as a matter of fact. But our documents and websites, and so that's something that we do cognizant of, and use people with disabilities to test websites and stuff. Also, there really needs to be a lot of education on service animals in this town. People don't understand what their role is and what behavior should be towards service animals. And I think just for people, especially who are sensory impaired, attitudinal access for people who are architecturally challenged is more a barrier access. So there are a lot of things I think that we can improve, even though we're trying to do the best job we can with the municipality.
If I may follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, ma'am.
Lynn, with your experience, have you navigated the municipality of Anchorage's website? And if you have, can you talk to me on areas where you might think we're either doing it great or we need to improve?
I haven't looked at it lately, but when I have looked at it, there were a couple of things which were about, for instance, for job applications where it has a drive-in, which, you know, it was not necessarily an essential function of the job, and that's, of course, you got to figure that out with Title I. But where it says, you know, delete the drive, and if you say no, people think you're a drunk driver or something like that. They won't know it's because of visual impairment or some other issue.
So maybe clarifying or just educating within HR or different places that are actually employing. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And who is this talking? Is that Mr. Dabowski?
Yes, ma'am, it is. It's great talking to you.
Thank you. I recognize you.
I have one of those voices. And Mr. Chairman, if I may follow up one more question. There was a lot of discussion when we were redrafting the taxi ordinance, and one of the areas that really struck me, and the stories were compelling, came from the disability community. And I know Mr. Evans was on the commission at the time. So I just want to know, from that ordinance passing, what efforts have you seen, or has the commission been involved with the transportation inspector's office to try to start this education process for taxi cab drivers? And do you think we fell short in that, or do you think there's still areas of improvement, or is it working well?
We haven't had a lot of we have not, that I know of, been approached since the changes were made. You know, we've seen just, you know, we haven't had any specific incidents brought to our attention. I think in general, you know, public, and I know taxis aren't really public transportation, but, you know, there's a lot of education that needs to happen. But as of right now, we haven't been approached to help, you know, draft any kind of a training program. So
I think I would like to hear from Eric too.
That's fine. Eric, and I want to go to Tim Steele and then you, ma'am. Eric?
Thank you, through the chair. Significant improvements in the training have been made since adoption of the ordinance.
Can you speak up, please?
Louder, Eric.
Largely utilizing a program put together by the Easter SEALs. It's being utilized both in our refresher training and in our initial training program. There will be some additional revisions to the initial training program. That's going out to bid here, I think, purchasing remark next week to get into next year's. So there will be some additional refinements.
Mr. Steele?
Has very good information available, and that is a great source of training.
Great, thank you, Lynn.
I was just out this morning out to transportation and saw 12 new handicap anchor ride vans that have the front right seat is not in there, and it has access to wheelchair access. And the comment by Director of Transportation was basically wait till the cabs see this. They're all going to be looking for those kind of vehicles. So the thought process is taking place out there with regards to accessible, ADA accessible vehicles.
Ma'am, could you identify your name?
I'm Ramona Snyder,
Okay.
and
and I've been missing these because I have a brain tumor. But as far as the city not being in compliance, you don't have a single handicap parking place on Fifth Avenue. And our parking places are to be closest to the door, not on side streets where we have to negotiate all the way back. And like these handicap signs right here at City Hall are supposed to be 7 feet high according to city code. And they're not there. There are a lot of issues in this town. The location, the condition, the signage. There's a lot of problems. And are you with the Governor's Council?
No,
Another commission.
with the
Oh,
commission.
okay.
And Ramona has, I'm sorry, Ramona has interfaced with our group a number of times, and this is the very point that I would have brought up next, so I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that on number 4C, you require in new construction accessible parking. There is no grandfather clause to ADA. They have to go back and redo it and get in compliance.
Yeah, and that's a simple omission. We would assume all parking. So we're not saying it just should be new.
Okay.
So that's something that I would amend my list with, because that we do understand that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ramona, I appreciate it. I do think we need to look at Title 21 and handicap parking, because I know I got complaints from Cabela's, people that go there. Cabela's are very good at putting 20 parking spots. Unfortunately, they're all in the straight line. So for people that have a disability, they can get a parking spot, but it's further out than putting them close to the building. So we need to relook at Title 21, because that's an odd way to take care of handicapped parking.
And this is an issue, again, where the commission would recommend that our regulations go above just what ADA says, and make sure that not only are we meeting the ADA requirements, but we're providing the best design to make that access easy for people.
And see, this has been my point before. I'm sorry.
Let the minute reflect that we were joined by Miss Gray Jackson.
And I apologize for being late, Mr. Chairman.
You were in a pink fire truck.
Oh, cool.
And we've got about 4 minutes left, ma'am, so if you make it quick.
Okay,
I've got to go to Pete Peterson.
I just want to point out that since 1991, these laws have been on the books. All this new construction has been allowed to take place out of compliance with federal law. To Cotonou, this medical building over on C in Northern Lights, that new building, that's out of compliance. Brand new building, out of compliance. Now, if I decide to start filing against these people, then they're going to come back to the city because you allowed them to do it. I'm just saying. They were allowed to build against the law.
Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to go back to the service animals. I've heard stories that there are occasionally problems that maybe business owners don't understand what the law is. And I was wondering, is there any chance there could be some sort of public service campaign done to educate people on what the requirements are for a person with a service animal, or has that happened in the past? I'm just throwing that idea out there.
Well, go ahead, Lynn.
Right enough. I mean, if you saw the October 4th, 14th, 13th piece on the KTU, where my baby, the poodle, was on the news, people didn't even picture the service animal, and people don't really understand. And even the cab company we called for that story, said, well, we need a pet friendly driver. So there's a lot of education in both the transportation community and the business community about service animals that needs to take place. And public service campaign might be a good idea.
Good idea.
Mr. Chairman, wait for a second. this may be something where we have an opportunity to work proactively with the commission and private members of the community. You know, and as we talk about public service, I mean, there are things that we could do that we could get a lot of bang for our buck if we just did a radio campaign. Obviously not during this time of year because you can't buy any radio time, but you know, off election season, where we do that, and you know, there's definitely opportunity there, and I think we could do some matching, you know. So maybe not public dollars, but I personally would be willing to help the commission in this effort. So, but it's stuff like that, you know, if you guys can kind of take the bull by the horns and start thinking about who could we engage in, and we could do a public outreach, we could do some PSAs on the radio, but it would take a little bit of effort on all of our parts to do it, but I would be willing to help privately as a citizen.
What I'm looking for from you guys is some information on dismissal parking spaces. Both Amy and I are working on a Title 21 subcommittee. We're taking a look at fine-tuning Title 21. So what I need from you is specific things that need changed relative to handicapped parking. Are we not charging enough for people that violate the law when it's come to parking signs? You know, and I want to make sure we have the spaces where they should be to provide access to handicapped people. Because like I said, when I got this call and I went and looked, they have a lot of parking spaces, but if you're handicapped, if your problem is walking, 20 spaces long almost locks you out of the building. So if we've got to change Title 21, I want to see about changing it.
Target did the same thing, ran it all the way out.
Who did?
Target,
Okay.
and now Cars, North Wayne Mall has their access aisle behind parked cars. Brilliant.
So if you give me what you've got, because we're working on this committee, within a month, I need it from you, okay?
Okay. You know, if I can just address that issue, from what we've heard and just share with you, one of the biggest problems we've heard with accessible parking is enforcement. That people will see cars parked illegally and there's no recourse, and it's very difficult. You know, it's not a 911 issue. And so it's that ability to, you know,
No, but
find the
those may
violators.
have some ideas on that. Because I know we were talking about a system where you could go on your iPhone and call complaints, and maybe we can deal with that.
I think part of the issue is that APD, I don't believe, responds unless the store management calls them.
I think any
They
citizen.
will respond to a parked vehicle. I have called and gotten
But
a
a handicap,
$300
in regard to
fine.
handicap, we're going to have to talk about it, Darryl, because I think with a handicap, park a handicap spot, they shouldn't have to have the store call, they should respond to any citizen. Because management's not gonna take a look at that angle.
I think that would put money into the coffers of the city. I've also suggested that if we give a stiff fine to these snowplow companies that are dumping the rocks, you won't have that problem anymore. It's quite simple. Call them and say, you're gonna get a $5,000 fine per spot, and you won't have that issue anymore.
Mr. Steele, we're
Yeah,
about done
I was
now.
just gonna say, it's gonna be a low priority call, and with the staffing level of APD, you know,
Yeah.
it'll be tomorrow before they get on the
Right.
scene.
You have to get them lucky. You have to get lucky.
Ms. Gray
With
Jackson,
casual
finish up.
enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank the commission for this focus list. I apologize for being late, but I scanned it and I really appreciate your work. All of us have constituents who have concerns, ADA concerns, but in particular, Mr. Train and I represent Ms. Barnes.
Snyder.
I'm sorry, Snyder, Ramon Barnes, Snyder, who's been in contact with all of us, but in particular with us back and forth. So I just really appreciate this, and hopefully we can see some improvements so that we aren't faced with penalties from the federal government. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, this meeting is over. I want to thank everybody for being here. It's now 1:30. This meeting's ended. We start the next one in a minute.